There is a kind of pain that builds slowly, not like grief, which arrives all at once, but quietly over years, in the spaces between one thing and the next, until you become aware of it the way you become aware of the cold gradually, then completely. Palliative care nurses, the people who sit with the dying in their final weeks, have documented what this pain is made of with a precision that is almost unbearable to read. What people regret most, it turns out, is remarkably consistent across cultures, ages, and circumstances. Not failure, not the attempts that didn't work. What the dying regret almost universally is the version of themselves they never allowed to exist. The love they were too guarded to give, the words they never said, the work they never began. These regrets share a common root. They are not about what happened, they are about what was prevented by fear, by other people's expectations, by the quiet belief that there would always be more time. Today we explore 6 truths about regret that the wisest minds in history discovered, and what they say about how to live the rest of your life in a way you will not need to mourn. Truth 1. Regret is not about what you did. It is about who you didn't become. Bronnie Ware, a palliative care nurse, spent years recording the final words of the dying. The most frequently spoken regret was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Not a specific action, not a single decision, but an entire self that was never allowed to exist. William James wrote, "The great use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it." He understood, before the research confirmed it, that regret is almost never about the things we tried and lost. It is about the things we never allowed ourselves to try. Psychologists call this inaction regret. In the short term, people feel worse about wrong actions. But over years, over decades, the regrets that grow largest are almost always those of inaction. The conversation never started. The work never begun. The life never fully lived. The fear of trying and failing is loud and immediate. The regret of never trying is quiet and cumulative. But over a lifetime, it outlasts almost every other pain. This is not a small distinction. It changes everything about how to weigh every difficult decision you will face from this moment forward. Truth 2. You will not regret the attempts that failed. You will regret the ones you talked yourself out of. Seneca wrote, "It is not that I have little time, it is that I waste much of it." He was not describing laziness. He was describing a life lived on the surface of itself, cautious and half-present, waiting for conditions to be right before truly beginning. The most painful regrets documented in research are not, "I tried and it didn't work." They are, "I never even started." The attempt made and failed is survivable. The attempt never made leaves a wound that does not fully close. Epictetus taught that the only true mistake is the one that teaches you nothing. A failed attempt sharpens you. It proves you can survive things going wrong. But the attempt never made cannot teach you anything. It only grows in the imagination larger, more golden, more haunting with every passing year. The version of yourself who tried and failed is stronger than the version who never tried. That is not a consolation. It is a fact. Start, not when you are ready, not when the conditions improve. Start with what you have, where you are now, because the attempt that fails will almost certainly hurt less than the life you looked back on and couldn't explain. Truth 3. Most regret was preventable, and the prevention required only courage. Pema Chödrön wrote, "The most fundamental harm we can do to ourselves is to remain ignorant by not having the courage to look at ourselves honestly and gently. The harm is rarely what life does to us. It is what we fail to do with what we are given. The courage required is rarely dramatic, not the courage of a battlefield, the courage to have one honest conversation, to create something and let others see it. To say, 'This is who I am, and I will live accordingly, regardless of how it is received.' Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, 'Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Not plan to be one. Not discuss what it will look like. Be one now, in the next decision, in the next conversation you are given.' The tragedy of preventable regret is that it rarely required something extraordinary. It required something ordinary, one decision made differently, at the right moment. Most people had those moments. They chose the safer path, and the echo of that choice grew louder over the years. Truth 4. Regret carried long enough becomes a prison you build yourself. Buddhism distinguishes between healthy remorse and toxic regret. Healthy remorse says, "Something went wrong. I want to do better." Toxic regret relives a past that cannot be changed, carried not as a teacher, but as a punishment. The self has sentenced itself to serve indefinitely. Carl Jung observed that what we cannot accept, we cannot release. The person who makes regret their identity, "I am someone who failed, who missed the moment, who let it go," has made it not just a memory, but a self. And a self cannot be set down. It must be lived. Kristin Neff's research shows that people who treat themselves with the same kindness they would offer a suffering friend recover from failure faster, take healthier risks, and make better subsequent decisions. The harsh inner judge does not make you better, it makes you smaller. The regret itself is not the prison, the refusal to forgive yourself, for it is. And that door opens from the inside. Truth 5. You cannot change what happened. You can change what it means. Viktor Frankl survived 3 years in Auschwitz. He lost his family, his manuscripts, everything he had built. In the camps, he observed something that would become the foundation of his life's work. Between what happens to us and how we respond, there is a space. In that space lives the last of human freedoms. He called this the freedom to choose the meaning we assign to our experience. The failure can be proof that you are not capable or it can be the beginning of a more honest path. The loss can be evidence that life is cruel, or the thing that taught you to love without taking it for granted. This is not positive thinking. It is the recognition that the same event carries multiple possible meanings, and the meaning you choose will, over time, determine who you become. Frankl called this tragic optimism, finding purpose not despite suffering, but within it. The regrets you carry can be transformed, not erased, not justified, but transformed from wounds into wisdom, from evidence of failure into evidence of a life fully engaged with being human. Truth 6. The moment you are living right now is either the regret you are preventing or the one you are writing. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "Everything is alien to us, Lucilius. Time alone belongs to us." He wrote this knowing that most people treat their time as unlimited, as if the conversation could be had later. The work started next year, the love expressed when the moment felt exactly right. The Stoic practice of memento mori, the deliberate remembrance of death, was not morbid, it was clarifying. It asked one simple question: if this were your last chance to be the person you intend to be, what would you do differently? Most people, asked that question honestly, have an immediate answer. That answer is the compass, not a vague ambition. A living compass available in every moment, pointing toward the version of yourself you will not regret. The version that acts, that speaks, that loves, that risks before the door closes. Lao Tzu wrote, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." The philosophy of a life without regret is not complicated. It is only difficult. It requires one step the one fear is telling you to delay. Not all the steps, just the next one. The present moment is the only place where regret can be prevented. Every other moment is already memory. 6 truths. Drawn from dying words, from philosophy, from psychology, and from the private writings of the people who thought most carefully about what a human life is for. Regret is about who you didn't become, not what you did. Failed attempts heal. Untried ones haunt. Most regret required only ordinary courage to prevent. Carried long enough, regret becomes an identity. You can change what something means, even when you cannot change what happened. And the present moment is the only place where regret can still be prevented. There is a version of your life that is still available. Not the impossible version, not the one where nothing went wrong. The version where, from this moment forward, you make the choices you will not need to mourn. You do not need to be fearless. You do not need to be extraordinary. You need to be honest about what matters to you and willing to live in that direction, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is uncertain, even when it cannot be done perfectly. The person who lives with the least regret is not the one who made the fewest mistakes. It is the one who was most fully themselves, most fully present, most willing to do the work they came here to do, today, not tomorrow, not when things settle. The present moment is the only place where regret can be prevented. Everything else is already memory. If this reached you at the right time, subscribe. We explore the deepest questions of human existence every week so you can live yours more fully.